everybody, and welcome. So, this is part 3 of 32 of my power rankings of NFL teams. And for this one, we have the Carolina Panthers. Last year, the Carolina Panthers finished 5 and 12, and there were points in the season where their offense looked absolutely awful. And then there was times where it was all right, and their defense was really amazing. Throughout the year, their defense held up pretty well. They did have some shaky games, but their defense, for the most part, was one of the better defense in the NFL last year. It's just their offense, especially the quarterback play, was just so shaky that it was hard to get anything really going for them and anything rolling. To go along with that as well, there's also been like some questions around like their head coach and how good he'll be. And there's also some questions about the front office and everything. When it comes to what they did last season, they kept showing some promise, but there was just so many issues with that team that just when it came to last year, it just felt like there'd be times where you would watch their game. It's like, oh, there's another punt, there's another punt, there's another punt. They need to find some ways to sustain some drives, and the quarterback play needs to get a little bit more consistent. Based off of last year and going into this year, I think they're gonna have a very similar season. They have some improvements they could possibly make, but overall, I think it's going to be a very similar season to last year. So when it comes to their play from last year, as you can see, there were some games where their offense was able to put up in the 20s and play somewhat all right. And then there's other games where their offense scored like 3 points, scored 6 points, scored only 14, scored another 6 points. But I get it, they were against some better teams, but their offense was basically what held them back last year. Their defense did a really good job overall. Towards the end of the season, did get end up getting a little shaky, but for the most part, I thought that their offense was the main issue and that their defense was good enough to get by. When it comes into this year, they got some key additions that will help out a lot. When it comes to this year, they end up getting people like Dante Jackson, Xavier Woods, Donta Foreman, and Johnny Hecker. There was a few more signings they had, obviously, but overall, a lot of them were seemed to be on the defensive side with a few offensive signings. But overall, I thought they did a really good job with some of these. When it comes to like their last year stats, like I said, their offense was beyond shaky, 29th in points, 30th in yards per game, 32nd in yards of play, and that adds up pretty much to a losing pot. Defensively, they had some bright spots here and there, but like I said, overall they just couldn't do enough to overcome the offense, and eventually they just need help. Going into next season, I think that they're probably going to get about 5 wins as well. Looking to their schedule, their strength of schedule is so they have a lot of people that are playing are pretty good teams. Like I said, it basically is going to all come down to the offense and how they can do some of these games. I can see them potentially beating teams like New York. They'll definitely split with Atlanta, I feel like, and maybe split with New Orleans just because it's division. But and then they'll probably get Seattle. But overall, they do have one, I believe, primetime game as well throughout the year, which will be nice for them. But overall, I don't know, man. Their offense is so shaky. Looking at their depth chart, I mean, you can see like Christian McCaffrey's healthy is really good. DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and Tommy Trumbull should be enough. They're good enough. If they have an average quarterback, they should be able to do good. But they're between Sam Darnold, Matt Corral, and PJ Walker. I just didn't think it's enough to get it done for the Panthers. You look at their defense. Like their defense is definitely their bright spot. They have like Brian Burns, really good. Corey Littleton's a good have. They also got Chuck Green, Thompson. They got J.C. Horn. They got Dante Jackson, like I said, Gary Chin. They have a lot of good like pieces here on the defense that will make a really solid defense. I feel like for next year, but the biggest question is going to be on offense. There have been some links to this team in Baker, but I don't know if that's going to fall through due to all this Deshaun Watson stuff. And regardless, assuming this team rides with these two quarterbacks, I only think they're going to get about 5 or so wins. So, in order for this team to do really well next year, I just feel like they have a lot of work to do on the offensive end. When it comes to quarterback play, they just got so much inconsistency at the quarterback play that they can't get by with it. They had a lot of inconsistency at the quarterback play last year. I mean, there were some games where Sam Darnold looked really well. Like at the beginning of the season, they did pretty good, and they were coming off to a hot start, and then all of a sudden that crash and burn. They had Cam Newton, he had one really good game, and then he kind of crashed and burned. And it was just watching that team out sometimes. It was just honestly really hard offense to watch, especially with Christian McCaffrey not being healthy all throughout the season too, that made it a little bit harder. I just think in order for this team to get anywhere and do anything well, they're probably gonna have like either get a better quarterback or they're gonna have to get more pieces to help around. Like they're gonna have to get another superstar receiver. They're gonna have to keep Christian McCaffrey healthy, and the NFL is scoring heavy now. So I with them still having a good defense, they just need to figure out something to do on the offensive end to be able to help them. If they get someone like Baker, I think he might add another like 2, 3 wins to them potentially. But even still, I just feel like the Panthers have a few key pieces. They just need a few more, and then they could be potentially a playoff contending team.